Like at the beginning of all of my custom Lego X-Men videos, just a quick justification of why I collect the custom minifigures themselves. Lego doesn't always do the best representing the characters that they put out, and in addition to that, they just don't have the variety that I would like for my team, and I need to fill in my roster somewhere. My go-to is KO Customs, like all the minifigures on the side there, and they do really fit into the same sort of aesthetic as an official minifigure, obviously with more detailing. So when you put them next to an official figure that is missing nice legs or anything like that, that is where the gap kind of becomes apparent between the different characters and the designs that are included. Of course, you can upgrade Cyclops in this case with some more official parts, like switching out the legs to be a little bit more accurate to the character's design, using those dual molded blue and yellow legs, and switching out the hip piece for a yellow hip. Just makes a better looking character. And even in the world of custom minifigures, some characters aren't going to be perfect too, and that'll be the case here for some of the parts that we bought. Just for example, the KO Customs Beast, I threw on the Jin claw hands, and then also the CMF Beast hairpiece there. So even the best customs in my collection, you can always do a little bit to make them even cooler, and KO Customs put out a couple parts to do that, like these printed legs intended for the official Cyclops minifigure, and also these Gambit legs to improve the Gambit minifigure that they put out. So very excited to check those out. That's not all in this order, because they also released a villain for the X-Men to fight. You know, Lego has done that themselves. In the first set, they put out this Magneto. The second X-Men set, they put out a second Magneto minifigure. Of course, in the newest X-Jet set 2, they gave another Magneto. So Lego is not doing a great job representing the villains in the X-Men team. Got to turn to customs for that too, not just for the main X-Men members. And it's been great seeing KO Customs fill in that side of the X-Men universe. And today that is continued again with Mr. Sinister here, featuring great printing, molded parts, and of course a very cool fabric cape system that we'll have to take a look at. But let's go ahead and check out the contents of this and the other cases. Just starting off with the Mr. Sinister parts that are included in his packaging. You get 3 different parts for his cape, 2 sheets for the instructions on how to assemble that, and then the cape pieces are sandwiched between this. It's kind of like a cardstock paper, so it stops them from getting bent. Get the minifigure separately bagged, and the extra parts, some shoulder pads, custom hairpiece, and power effects. Like all their minifigures, they have their render of the character on the front, and then on the back, the number out of the total. So I have 19 out of 80, their website, logo, some warnings like it is an official Lego part. And it's just nice to get the cool little collector card. It's nice to keep it consistent. A lot of companies do that. And the other parts are just individual legs. So we have the Cyclops legs and the Gambit legs. I'll just take a look at these 2 parts first, since they will be the quickest. And I'm excited to see what these look like on the minifigures. Like I kind of brought up with Cyclops, it is a pretty good minifigure for being an official Lego minifigure. Torso looks good, you know, they got the straps. Definitely say the Jim Lee version that they put out in this newest set is a lot better than the classic Cyclops suit. My preferred look. And switching out the legs for those official ones, it is a decent upgrade. You know, he's missing some of the leg straps, which of course is something that the legs today will fix. So let's toss those on too. And this goes above and beyond. You get the extra shading with the subtle bright light orange at the trunk area, and I believe even on the pads or straps, I guess I should say, not knee pads. Printing goes all the way around the outside of the legs and also on the inside of the legs. See more of that bright light orange wrapping around the boot all the way around too. So there is even more detailing there. And this would be a lot more consistent with the other KO Customs minifigures, whether it is Iceman, continuing the same sort of trunk design, but probably a little bit closer to their Colossus, which also has boot printing. It seems like the heights for the boots are pretty consistent here. Maybe the Colossus ones are a little bit taller since they have the yellow, but the trunk design continues all the way around. And it's nice they're printed on yellow legs, so as you bend the body, the trunks don't break up at all. And I love that when KO Customs does that. That's one of their best features. The only thing that's kind of a downside now is that the Cyclops torso, the yellow, is a little more opaque. Lego's not doing a good enough job printing their torsos usually, especially in darker colors. So there is a little bit of inconsistency there, and it's definitely not KO's fault. Yellow matches the yellow plastic, which it should. It's just official Lego parts with printing on it. And I do really like the shading. It's nice to see that continue from their other designs. And I have the crazy arms on there right now for my Danger Room mock. have him shooting the laser out of his hand to make it look like it is coming out of the visor. And if you want to see anything about my Danger Room series, check out the X-Men playlist in the top there. But this is a great look for the character. Glad to see it being improved in some way. And of course, now I have my perfect Cyclops minifigure for my collection, and I'll be very happy to have this in the Danger Room going forward. Let's move on to Gambit. And I am a big fan of the base KO Customs Gambit. I do have a different head on there right now, which uses the Jin tilting head to give it a little bit more expression. I'd love to see more companies print on those parts, but overall, the molds that KO Customs put out were great. This figure came out with a ton of accessories. Again, I already did a full review on the original minifigure. You can check it out in the corner too. But one of the complaints was that the leg articulation is very limited with the setup with the molded trench coat that they did, where you can only move the legs very slightly, which is a bummer for someone like me where I'm posting these minifigures in my Danger Room mock and want more range with the legs. And the printing on the legs are great too, so it's kind of a bummer to cover them up all the way. But it's nice, the plastic on this matches the torso, and of course also the top of the trench coat for the collar. I did like that. I think it is really nice having the full plastic. You do the fabric and it throws off the sheen, and just the look isn't super consistent. So that is why it's good that they did the printed legs here too. You can see that the legs are the same color as the torso, so that'll match very consistently, and even the color on the legs also are consistent. So another interesting upgrade, and let's see what it looks like on the minifigure. And color-wise, perfect match. The line going all the way down where the coat continues, perfect. There's some extra creases at the bottom, on the sides, and not on the back, but it does continue the boot sort of outline on the back. I don't think there's much of like brown printing on the inside, but it's cool too on the inside of the legs. It has the black for the pants continuing around instead of brown, and you also get the boot printing, so the sort of implied outline for the like division in the boot is there, which is obviously an accurate detail. Color-wise, everything is the same, but it's actually interesting the boots don't have the same shaping. You can see on here that the sort of circle parts of the triangle are smaller, and the lines on the sides of the boots aren't at the exact same height necessarily. I think the first black line there is a little bit higher, and it is interesting that they did do that, since the second line on the new version of the legs kind of is pretty close to the jacket, so it just kind of blends together a little bit more. On the back of the leg, looks like the same sort of thing, where most of these black lines should still be showing, but it's just the one. I'm sure they just wanted to simplify the design a little bit. It is interesting though that the circles aren't the same, but I guess they still wanted to show a little bit, so maybe they moved it down a bit more. Who knows? But like I mentioned with Cyclops, the brown continues, the black on the inside doesn't. So you can bend it a little bit backwards, so there is some range. Of course, bending it forwards, you're going to be fine. But it's good. Now you can have him kick the entire way. You don't run into any sort of range issues there. And it's nice to see the black continued on the inside of the legs to have the continuity with his pants. I think of the little details, and it is nice of them to go out of their way to give you another option to improve this minifigure if you are looking for an improvement. And I do think this is a good option. This is what Lego would do, and they're going to do this again for their Jubilee minifigure that's coming out. So they're just thinking of any collector in mind, what you might want for your collection, and it is just good to see them being sort of open to suggestions like this and to give solution. Very good look for them, and I'm glad that they were looking out for collectors. Let's move on to the new figure with Mr. Sinister. Straight out of the packaging. Very nice detailing on the minifigure. It has a two-sided head, so two different expressions. Starts out with the evil grinning look, which is nice. You get the red eyes with the pupils, shadows around that. Arms printed with some striping, but the lower his forearm doesn't have the sort of stripes going across. Same for the other side. It's pretty much a mirrored minifigure. Back of the legs continue with some of that striping. You get the classic comic book trunk design too, which I showed off earlier with the Cyclops minifigure. No inside leg printing on this character. I feel like when it is this darker blue, it's kind of hard to see the black lines on it anyway. Not a big deal, and since it is this consistently dark blue, inside design isn't going to matter as much when you're moving the legs around. Belt goes around, nothing on the side of the torso, which again, fine. It would have been nice, I guess, to have the belt go around. Other than that, they're matching Lego's aesthetic. They're not really doing the side torso printing, so no complaints there. Of course, let's try and get that cape on. First step, take the head off, and then you put on the more normal Lego cape shaped one. And so far, you just put it on like a normal cape. After that, shoulder pads go on to press that down. Kind of see it splays out a bit. That's what it looks like at the moment. Red goes on the inside where the torso is. The blue facing the inside. And then with this one, it kind of cups upwards. I think pictures are a little hard to tell. I think we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll have to mess around with this after the whole thing's on. But with this one, you're supposed to kind of, I think it is supposed to cup up, because then you bend down the other ones in the back. Just quick adjustments. A little harder to do this on camera, probably. So bear with me. And you can see each of these sections kind of has like a cut in it to help you fold it down and make it a little bit easier to actually hold its position. And he just has a really complicated design. They went the fabric route with the cape. I feel like some companies would have done a molded part for that just because of the complicated angling that kind of goes on with that design. In real world, this probably wouldn't actually be possible. And one last section of the cape, this time red facing the inside where the head's going to be. So a little bit on the complicated side, and it definitely adds a lot of thickness in that neck area where this character will end up looking a little bit taller, which is probably fine for villains. I feel like they typically tower over the heroes, and I'll probably make some quick adjustments to the cape off camera, but that is just the basic setup there. I think it has an interesting look. And I got the hairpiece tossed on too, which is actually really tight, so just be careful with that, taking it off, putting it back on. I feel like print-wise, something you could damage if you're not careful. Cape is a little bit busy. I definitely think displaying this might be a little bit of a pain where things will get tangled if you're not last second adjusting things, but they definitely got the effect of his weird cape design down. Looks like he, again, got it not straight. So like I said, you're going to be adjusting this every once in a while as you're moving things around, unfortunately. But maybe the designers for his suit in the comics should have been a little more considerate to the people making toys in the future down the line, especially at a smaller scale like this. It just gets a little bit more complicated. I think this face design is pretty good. The character definitely has the grin a lot more, so maybe I would display it on the other side. Hairpiece is fine. It is nice that they did a mold here. It is interesting that anti-stud on the hairpiece has like white showing, which kind of says to me that it is 3D printed like some of my other resin parts, but on the website it does say it is injection molded. So not sure why the color is different on the inside. I do like the sheen there. Sometimes with those custom hair pieces, it looks a little bit off. And let's flip around the expression. I'll toss out some other hair options too. And like I said, just careful with the print when you're taking the hairpiece off. And like you can see here, it must be molded in gray and then printed black. So maybe they have ideas to reuse that hairpiece. I feel like for me, the best official Lego hairpiece would be this one here. Of course, unfortunately, covers up his little diamond on his head, which is too bad. And I would guess they use this for their Colossus minifigure they already made, probably didn't want to reuse it. And I'm sure they were just running into issues where there's just not enough room on the head to actually fit all the details they wanted. Needed a custom hairpiece for that. I'm sure most official hairpieces are going to have the same issue. Here's that slick back look. Actually, that looks pretty good. And maybe I want to use that one since like I said, I just don't want to damage the figure in any way. That's not awful. It has like the widow's peak that is pretty typical of him, and I have one more 3D printed hairpiece that I want to show off that kind of reminded me of the one that came with it, and that would be this Shamrock Clone Trooper hairpiece. Covers up the diamond. That's too bad. And again, lastly, just tossing this one back on. A little crooked, I guess. Fine. It's kind of interesting that it's kind of spiked up in the front, where I feel like the comics should be more just like slicked back, or even in the show it is just like flat. But I'm always happy to get some custom molded parts, and it is nice of them to add something like that. They could have done a more generic official Lego hair if they wanted to, but they're just going above and beyond like always. Same goes for the cape. I couldn't think of anything better for that other than like a printed cape piece, and I just don't think it would have looked as good as this. I think the custom fabric parts here are the way to go. And again, just a very complicated character design, and they're just trying to translate it. I think this is about as good as you can get without a huge custom molded part that would be very hard to work around and would make the character very fragile. So this is probably a better solution instead of having some very thin, loose plastic parts going around the minifigure. I'll throw on the power effects too, which aren't official Lego minifigure parts, but are based off of the power effect molds by Lego. And it's nice to get the sort of hand effect piece there in another color, since it only comes in transparent, I think, in actual Lego. You know, it actually might come in a couple of different colors, but more transparent options are nice. And it is kind of weird that these might not come in yellow. I can't remember. I think they do, since the Electro minifigures also have them, but great to have some sort of thing for his powers. I guess I would have preferred a potion of some sort, since he's always doing that sign stuff. But Mr. Sinister, glad to have it in the collection, and let's go to some comparisons and the final verdict. And another hit by KO. Mr. Sinister here is a great addition to the villains roster for the X-Men, and I guess it is interesting, this figure only had 80 as the quantity. Most of his other minifigures have 100, so it is a little bit rare just based on the number. Things to keep in mind, like I said, the hairpiece is a little tight, and the cape has a lot of thin and loose fabric pieces kind of hanging around. So just be careful when you're moving it around that you're not getting them pinched anymore. I'm sure there's a chance that you could end up accidentally tearing them, and you wouldn't want to have that. Print-wise though, amazing. Really like both expressions. It's nice how the boot sort of design just has the very cool transitions, and with the arms where it goes with the striping straight to the just flat color. And I forgot to point it out, the muscle lines curve along the pecs, also the arm muscles, just like Colossus, where it isn't just like straight across. It does follow the muscle line. So design cues from that are continuing here, which is nice to see them have that continuity with their own designs, and are just going to make the characters a little bit more accurate. Cyclops legs are good. You know, it is a very small area to print a ton of detailing. He technically should have 2 straps, but you can only fit so much on the legs. It is nice to have these being much more consistent with that of Colossus and Iceman, like I already pointed out. And now I have all 3 of these characters together, Mr. Sinister, as well as the 2 Summers brothers. So that'll be a nice little collection. In the Danger Room, I'm definitely going to have all of those characters together. And of course, with X-Men 97, Mr. Sinister is definitely one of those important animated series characters, and it'll be good to have him just for battles or any other future mocks that I might want to do. And this is basically every single KO Customs X-Men minifigure that I have, all the different characters that they've done. I have a couple of V1s that I don't have, like the Nightcrawler and the Wolverine, but really loving the lineup that they're getting out there. Very excited for Jubilee and Morph to come out too, to add to the X-Men 97 X-Men animated series lineup, and just get more great molded accessories, great prints, and overall great X-Men minifigures to just keep adding to the team. If you want to see more custom Lego X-Men or custom Lego Marvel overall, see all the videos on my channel. I've been Brick Radiop, and I'll see you in the next video.